I am Sakshi. I am from the value creation team at MB and Beyond, and I'll be your host for the day, along with these two lovely pair of speakers that we have, Andy and Sanjana. Also, my favorite pair of former consultant slash former applicant. So really happy to have you guys on board today. Andy, we can start with you introducing yourself, and then Sanjana, we can take it ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Andy. I'm in California. It's 7:30 in the morning. I'm just north of the Golden Gate Bridge by San Francisco. I worked at INSEAD for 7 years, from 2011 to 2017, as head of student life. I miss it terribly. It was a great job, and I've been doing this for MBA and Beyond for, I guess, a year and a half now. And I love this, and it's really great. And Sanjna is one of my first clients, and she's awesome. So it's good. You're going to learn from her. She's halfway through the program, and then you're going to hear from me. And so hopefully you'll know everything you want to know about INSEAD by the time we're done.
Let me quickly introduce myself. So I worked at KPMG for 6 years, KPMG India, in risk consulting. And like Andy said, I'm halfway through. I finished 2 semesters at INSEAD. I'm in Fontainebleau right now, moving to Singapore in Jan. So I hope to experience both parts of like the INSEAD experience in both Singapore and Europe. And I'm excited to answer any questions you all have. Like Andy said, I actually worked with MB and Beyond when I worked on my application. It's been a year to that date. I remember I applied, I think 10th Jan was my application. I replied in round 3 in INSEAD. So I know it's been a year since Andy and I worked on this process, but it literally still feels like yesterday. And I'm excited to answer any questions anyone has. Of course, you have my favorite person with me on this call who I credit to my INSEAD journey and success of getting in. So I'm really excited. This is, I think, one of the most special calls that I've done at MB and Beyond. And the timing is just perfect because 1 year into me applying. Yeah.
Yeah, Sanjana, it's so lovely to see you on the other side. I remember like last year, it was December when you were juggling between your GMAT and your
Yeah.
applications. I remember the text that you used to send me, and I remember it very well. And it's so happy to see you on the other side, like introducing you as an INSEAD candidate. So really happy, and I remember how stressful that time must have been. And also talking about if you're someone, guys, applicants, you're someone who plans to apply to jan 2025 intake, right now is the time for you to start. Application is not something that is done in a week or 10 days. Take it from Sanjana, she started early. And right now, if you're someone planning to apply to programs like INSEAD, HEC jan 25 intake, this is the time for you to start because application takes a lot of building. It is a slow step. It's something that would take your life, and give it a turn. So it needs that amount of time, that building. You have a consultant or anyone, you need to brainstorm. So a lot of effort goes into it. That's not just something that will take 7 days or 10 days to complete. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to talk about to you guys about. And now starting with the session. So how this session would work is, for the first 25 to 30 minutes, we will be taking in the questions that we have already received, and Andy and Sanjana would be answering those. And for the remaining 30 minutes, we will be taking in the questions that you guys can send it in the chat box, and we can answer them one by one. And towards the end, we'll also be sending a feedback form that you guys can fill, and it would be really helpful to get your feedbacks as well. So starting with this session, I can take the first question, and then maybe Andy, you can start answering, or Sandra, you can take it ahead, and we can just start. Right. So talking about the first question that we have. So what are the key components of an INSEAD application, and how do they contribute to the overall evaluation?
Andy, I think I'll let
Yeah,
you.
Andy, we can't hear you. So Sanjana, you can start, and then maybe Andy can join.
I can see him speaking. I just, yeah, we can't hear him.
Okay, I think he's changing his earplugs.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Whew, sweet. My earpods are very grouchy. Okay, key components. Obviously, I mean, we all know the list: essays, GMAT, resume, GPA, LORs, all that stuff. I think with INSEAD, one important factor that's really more important than almost any other school is international experience. I think this was an area where Sanjana, you shined. International experience is really built into the DNA of the school. They have 1,000 students a year representing 85 countries. If you have zero international experience, it's going to be a challenge. And the more you have, the better. And international experience doesn't mean living in other countries. It can be working with clients in other countries. It can mean study or exchange, or even travel if you can spin it right. So all the components of the successful application are the same with any other school, but I think for INSEAD, one of the main most important characteristics is international experience. Sanjana?
Yeah, I think that is probably the most important. And then the second thing that really did make a difference, I think, is the resume part that Andy mentioned. Because a lot of people that are doing their MBA here have years of experience anywhere. Like I had 6 years, but I'd say the average is still 8, 9, 7. You'd see a lot more people with those many years. So the resume is just one page, right? But one page of you kind of putting down those many years of experience, but in a way where you're able to bring out the value of what you've done. It's not repetitive, and it's not just, like this just fact, but also you're getting some knowledge out of it. So I think that's really important because it kind of sets the tone of what you did professionally. And then you have the essays, which are plenty, in fact, for INSEAD. I think we had 6 to 8 essays, and then the recommendation ones if you're doing them yourself as well. So there's a lot of emphasis. Each of the essays are looking for different areas, different aspects. And I think all those 3 things together with the GMAT score finally make like the perfect application.
And one other thing to add is, and this I think is true of any school, is INSEAD prides itself, their logo, their motto is business as a force for good in the world. And social impact is a really big part, a big pillar of INSEAD's core values. And I think in addition to international experience, it's good to emphasize any social impact in your profile. And a learning from that you can use with any school is that somewhere on their website, they're going to have their core values. And so it's a good idea to kind of think about your values and how they stand next to the values of the school, and see if you can highlight the core values that make you, in your profile, that make you appealing to the school.
Got it. I totally agree with both of you, Sanjana, the resume part. What I also see is that, applicants tend to just bring a draft of a resume, like they submit it for, jobs. But what differs in this MBA application is what you have done and the result. Like you just cannot write, I have done this work. What was the work done and what is the result? And that is something that can only be done when you have someone to guide you with your applications and your entire process. Okay, so moving on to the next question. We have, can you also elaborate on how work experience and leadership qualities are assessed in the INSEAD application?
Oh boy, work experience. Well, that's a good one. When it comes to work experience, the focus is how it got you to where you are, and how it, your goals. Like, are your goals, because goals are super important in the application and the essay. Are you looking to change your complete trajectory of your career? Are you gonna change your sector, change your geography? So if, the people who read your essays and the alumni that you meet, they're gonna see this. I always ask my clients to picture a whiteboard, and it's like, here's your undergrad or graduate degree, and then here's your work experience. And then from this dot, this is present day, this is today. do you want to keep going on that path, or do you want to go a different direction? And first of all, why do you want to go in a different direction? But also, how has your work experience, how is it going to contribute to you achieving? The formula is, how is work experience plus the MBA going to allow you to achieve your goals? And that's the narrative you have to tell is, okay, maybe my work experience isn't relevant to my goals, but here's how I'm going to make it work. So you can't gloss over that. You absolutely have to identify. And then if you want to stay in this field, why do you want an MBA? Well, because it's going to allow me to be promoted faster, or maybe change geographies. The way to think of an MBA is that it's a tool, it's a key to unlocking more career opportunities in the future. So work experience plus MBA equals your goals, and you have to explain to people how that is and why that is and how you're going to make it work. I sound like blah, 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 but it's actually, maybe you can back me up here.
Yeah, because I remember in my application, so when it came to work experience, there were questions, of course, like, first of all, just in, I think, 100 words, just describe what's the work that you do. So you're not really, you don't get too much of a chance to talk about the leadership aspect, but the work aspect. What is it that you actually do? And I remember INSEAD's application was interesting because they had a question which said, what happens if you don't get into INSEAD? What would you choose to do with, like, would you continue working? Like, what are your plans if you were not to get into INSEAD? Which I thought was so interesting because you talk about, say, post MBA goals, but they had another way of kind of asking you, what would you do if you were not doing this MBA? Would you continue to work? Would you want to change your job? Would you look at something different? And that really aligns with what Andy said in terms of the trajectory. If you want to continue down the same path, what you say in that answer really kind of should match. But if you're not, and if you want to switch, say, and move and look at a different direction, then that might be the opportunity, right? So why you would maybe say continue working at the same job, or what would you be open to switching? So it's like a way to kind of see how clear you are about your goals and what's the effort and work you're putting into your long-term goals. And it also came across in my interview because I remember there was a lot of emphasis on what you did in both of my
I was going
interviews
to
for
tell
that
this
matter.
story. I was going to tell this story. Go ahead. You tell it, and
Yeah.
then I'll tell my version of it.
And there was so much emphasis on, even in the first interview, I remember I told Andy, I think it's a little weird because they asked me, what if you didn't get an INSEAD? Would you still be working here? And I was like, Andy, I don't know. Maybe he's like subtly telling me that, listen,
She was
maybe this
freaked
is
out,
not
everyone. She
happening.
was freaked out.
I was like, okay, that was
We
code.
got on the phone and she was like, oh my God, I'm not getting in. I'm like, what do you mean? He kept asking me, trying to prepare me. What if I don't get in? And I'm like, calm yourself down. That's just, you happen to get an interviewer who is knowledgeable in your
Yeah.
field. And he was just, but you were all freaked out. It was probably one of the
Yeah.
most freaked out times I ever talked to you
Yeah.
during our journey together. But then, sure enough, you made it in. So actually, your story, I still tell to my clients, like, oh, so I tell that story before the interview. I'm like, listen, you may get grilled about what if you don't get in, and they may go in. That doesn't mean you're not getting in. That just means, interviewers, they want to know if you've thought everything through. They'll also ask, what other schools have you applied to? And, they don't just ask about the one little micro thing. It's the whole thing. Sorry, Sanjana, you can finish. I cut you off.
You're absolutely right. So every part of your interview, your application, they're just looking for the clarity you have. And then the MBA is sort of like the enabler to say how this is contributing in your journey. If it's from a leadership perspective, if it's from a career perspective, if you're changing, switching zones. And I know Sakshi mentioned leadership as part of the question. So that was also one of the areas that you're trying to bring about in your work experience. Because I, for example, wanted to bring that about where I was right now, but where I want to go, and how the MBA is going to help me do that from a leadership standpoint. And so it's like you're really trying to share a lot of information with some of the schools that you're applying to in those many words, but also not in a way where you're just showing off. Like I remember Andy was really like, that was one thing where, we don't want to be show off, but we also want to get the point across in the right way. And so I think you have to be very tactful of how you're doing it. And that's where, for me personally, I think the consultants and like that just really helps, because when you're doing it yourself, you don't know what needs to be positioned in which manner. And really it's all about how you're positioning, because it stays consistent in your interviews. Like every part of this process, you're going to stick to that storyline and that brand that you're kind of building in the initial content creation phase.
Real quick before we move on to the next question, Sanjana, I want to ask you, a lot of my clients are struggling with how to define leadership in their roles. And I often tell them it doesn't mean you need to be the boss. It doesn't mean you need to be sort of driving the project or anything, but I think it's more about like innovative ideas and suggestions and being able to have your voice heard. And so since you're in the belly of the beast right now, I want to hear your take on leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I I actually talked about how I wasn't like Andy said, like I wasn't the boss because I was so junior at first. I grew quickly, but my responsibilities actually were way more than what my designation was. And so the contributions that I was able to make, say for my clients and just even as a team, and then probably show that impact in terms of revenue, in terms of what I was doing, client feedback, was what kind of quantified as my way of doing like leadership. And so that was really interesting that I was able to show it in that manner. And I agree completely. It does not mean you have to be the boss, but it's about I think what's the level of responsibility you took on, and then the impact that you created in your role.
Okay, good one.
Got it. Thank you so much, guys, for answering this question. Also, to add on to the work experience part. So talking about aligning your goals and what you want to do after an MBA and what you have currently done, it's all about clarity, as Andy and Sanjana have mentioned. It's all about being clear in your thought process that what you want to do and are you clear yourself. And I think that is what the school tries to see in your application and also in an interview. And as Andy mentioned, they try to grill you for that as well to understand what you really want to do. So moving on to the next question, we have what criteria do schools use to select scholarship recipients, and how can applicants position themselves as standard candidates?
I think this would be interesting for Andy because he's seen the other side. So
Well, okay.
I would.
So good question. So criteria for scholarships is different based on the scholarship. So when I was at INSEAD, I was actually for a while on the scholarship committee. And I mean, I can just tell you from the way it works there is once you're admitted to the interview phase, you're also sent, and not at the same time, but like a week or whenever later, a list of scholarships. And they're sort of in categories like merit-based or specializing in whatever, women or sustainable energy or whatever. And then what I tell my clients about these scholarship essays is, with admission essays, with application essays, you need to keep your stories. You don't want them to overlap. You don't want the same story in more than one essay. But with scholarship essays, you can. And the reason is that INSEAD, the way they do this is they take the names off all of the essays, and there's a committee that I was on, and then you read an essay, and let's say it's for a company that's gonna, like the Forte, I think, is promoting women. So you'll tell a story of how you promoted women in the workplace, and then there might be another essay that also has something to do with another scholarship that has something to do with women. And I would read the same story in a different essay. Now, I don't know who it is, but not be identical, like they wouldn't just cut and paste, but they would modify it for the question. So anyway, the way the process is, you go to the interview stage. At some point, they also give you a link to apply to scholarships. There will be, Forte, blah, 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 a bunch of different categories. You write essays for those. The stories can be similar. And then usually you hear about the scholarship, not at the same time you get an admit, but in the days following. And what else? What am I missing? Yeah, but it's a process that happens sort of alongside the admissions process, but they don't intersect, is what I'm trying to say. Sanjana?
Yeah, and I see like there are questions merit-based, need-based. I know that when you do a selection from the scholarship list that most schools will have, it would be based on like the criteria, like Andy's saying. So each scholarship, for example, I applied for a diversity scholarship, but then like the Forte one is for women. You also have the L'Oreal one. So there's a couple of interesting scholarship options. And also there's some community-based ones, right? So they're looking for, of course, the impact that you've created, and the scholarships will clearly state for what they're looking for in the candidates that are applying. And I guess you kind of have to play to the strengths of that, bring that value forward in the application. But I tried to keep it more merit-based in that particular application, because INSEAD, for example, gives you 2 questions. So one based on your need or financial question, it's a completely separate question. It's not linked to the scholarship one. So you would be answering separate questions where you actually have to state what are the financials, how you plan on funding your MBA loan, how much you want to take, how you're doing managing. So that's a completely separate aspect of the scholarship application. And then there is one where you're answering questions for the scholarships you're applying for. And so I think when I did mine, one of the things that we discussed and we worked on was I tried to work on academic and professional strengths, as well as my personal qualities. And so those were the 3 areas that I tried to bring out for a merit-based scholarship, basically. So yeah, I think that's my kind of way of how I looked at the scholarship applications.
Ooh, we're getting some really good questions in the chat. I can't wait to get to the.
Yeah, even I can't. So guys, just we have like 1 question left. So you guys can start dropping in your questions on the chat box, and we can start taking it one by one. Coming to the last question that we have. The deadlines for Jan 25 intake are due in about 2 months from now on. When do you think applicants should start working on their applications if they're targeting 3 schools or more?
I mean, that is an easy answer, which is today, yesterday. I mean, the more time you have, the more relaxed the process is. You know, one of the beauties of the MBA and beyond process is the content gathering, and that's not something that can be done in a day or 2 days. I mean, it really takes time. And then when I talk to my clients immediately after the content gathering phase, I ask questions, and those stories change, and they, you know, sometimes a weakness becomes a strength. I literally had somebody write about a weakness that I thought was a strength. So the answer is the more time, the better. I'm pretty sure Sanjana's going to agree with that.
Yeah, I took a month actually. And that's because not because the process is that long, but because I took my time with it, like Andy said. I started
a month
my
for
process.
The content gathering.
Yeah. I started because I signed up and I started well in time. And I knew how important the content gathering stage was, because for me, that gave Andy the opportunity to actually go through all the content I had, create the brand document, which was something that was, okay, how are we going to position this application? How are we going to position Sanjana and all the applications she's applying to? And so I knew how important that was, which is why I wanted to, and I knew, like, I honestly think if you do the content gathering stage with all seriousness, a lot of the difficult parts of your application are already done, because you already have all the content ready just to be used and plugged in and then obviously polished. So I think it's best to start early and you don't want to do content gathering in a rushed manner. That's why I said the process itself doesn't take a month, but I took my time because I made sure I covered all my bases. I made sure I had everything that was already, you know, populated for Andy to use in a way that was holistic. I covered everything that I could
see my dog. Sorry, this is Jojo.
Hi.
Okay, sorry, distraction. Go ahead.
Enjoying this experience as well now.
Yeah, she hears me talking to clients. She thinks I'm talking to her. Okay, I cut you off. That was unprofessional. Sorry.
No, but that's basically what I was saying. Start in time so that you can work with your counselors on this process and understand, you know, what are the strengths. Like Andy said, right? Like, just the fact that he had that information to give somebody that advice, you have the time to go back on this and work on this branding, rebranding. And if you do it in a rushed manner, I think you're just stressing the whole time and you're not able to do it in the right way.
Got it. So I think we're done with the questions that we had already, and we can start taking on the questions on the chat box. So first question that we have is, how much time should be given to A, essays, B, CV? That is your resume.
Let me go up to the top here so I can see. Okay, scholarship. You know, there's no set amount of time. I'm assuming you mean time to prepare them. The way I usually do it, and this is just me, is that the first 4 essays are job essays where they're really quick, pretty short answers. Describe your role. What would you do if you stayed in your position? Long-term and short-term goals. I mean, I've had clients get them done in a week, and I've had clients take a couple weeks. So there's no set time, but it's you know, you hear it MBA Beyond, it's an iterative process where you write a draft, you send it to me or the consultant makes suggestions and they send it back and you talk about it. It's like a ping pong ball back and forth and back and forth. What's the next one?
Yeah, also
Saksha,
to add on to Andy, your you know, what you've said right now for essays. So guys, essays usually takes about you know, depends on the schools. So INSEAD, because it is a very heavy application, it can take about 30 to 40 days for an essay, for like 7 to 8 essays that we have for INSEAD. CVs usually take about you know, a week or so. So yeah, that is, you know, if you're looking for an answered time frame. But yeah, Andy's also right. It also depends on a lot of factors. Then we have the next question, which is, what if you wish to switch streams, which is why you're getting an MBA? That is transitioning.
You try that one and I'll see.
It's like, that's the clarity, right? Why you're wishing, why you want to switch, how the MBA is going to help you in that manner. Like, for example, if you're coming to INSEAD to switch to consulting, completely not unheard of. So it's very acceptable. The school understands because it's something that is common in school here. Like, right, consulting is something that they're really good at. But that's the clarity you need to know. Like, this school excels in this, and I know it's going to contribute in this way. And so just having, again, goes back to clarity. If you know what you're getting into, how this MBA is going to help, it is like 10 months at the end of the day, right? And and one thing, you know, when Andy and I discussed, and he'll say this to you, I'm sure, that it is a huge investment that you're making. So you have to do, it's basically the return on investment. You have to do the groundwork to see how this is really going to help you. And if your question is, does it make a difference if you want to switch to schools look down? No, it's completely acceptable. Just having the clarity of how it's going to make a difference, it's what matters. That's it.
And this actually kind of gets into the next, so we're talking about switching streams, right? And there's no such thing as a bad answer if you have a plausible story for it. You know, I want to get into sustainable energy because I was working at McKinsey and I worked on some sustainable energy projects and it really turned me on, and that's where I want to get into. A lot of times people are trying to spin it like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't want to tell INSEAD that because, and I'm like, no, it's completely fine if you have passion and excitement about it. So yeah, don't stress too much about that. What's our next question? Actually, I got lost here on the chat.
Yeah. So the next question we have is from Rafael. It's about need-based and merit-based scholarship. Like, which is the best for him? Because he feels he'll have a higher income than most of the class. So I feel a need-based scholarship would look out of place if I apply.
Okay, so the way I answer this question is that when you're putting in the financial information as far as need-based and stuff, you cannot lie by 1 penny. You have to be completely honest. How much do you have in savings? What's your income? Blah, blah, blah. And then they'll run their formula. They'll run their algorithm and you'll either get it or you won't. But you cannot spin, you know, the anything financial is just black and white. When it gets into like, what have you done for women or sustainable energy, blah, 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 that's an essay that has to take some brain power. But the need-based financial stuff, income, it either is or isn't. That's not something that can be spun.
Got it. Is there anything else? Yeah, you'd like to add, Andy? Or we can skip to the next question. Yeah. So for the next question, we have it from Venkata Raghava. Guys, it would be great if you can, you know, just unmute yourself and ask the question if you're comfortable. So Venkata, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, hi, Andy and Sanjana. Thanks for the call. Actually, is instead of GMAT, is GRE or executive assessment is acceptable to get the admission? Suppose if you have more than 10 years of experience.
Yes, that's fine. What makes me nervous about this is 10 plus years of experience, because it sounds to me like you might be bumping up against the EMBA. The MBA, during my time at INSEAD, I did meet clients that were, 32, 33, but they may well steer your application toward the executive MBA, which was designed for people in their 30s who are working, who want to keep their jobs and have families and stuff. So the EMBA allows you to work and study simultaneously. I don't know how old you are, but if you're, 34, 35, they may encourage you to apply for the EMBA, which is the same curriculum, just taught over in a different period of time. If that makes any sense.
I'm 31. Is that any?
Oh, you're fine. No, you're fine. 31 is fine.
31 is fine for this full-time MBA.
So then, if that's the case, why would you not take the GMAT?
That one needs preparation and all, right? So I'm preparing.
You know what I would recommend?
What I would recommend,
just for fun, take a mock GMAT and see how you do, because there's no danger in that. Take a mock and see how you do, and take a GRE mock and see how you do. And if you choke, then you can talk about the EA. But take a mock test is my recommendation to see how you do.
Okay. And is part-time MBA also there in INSEAD?
No.
Part-time MBA? Oh, only full-time and executive MBA, right?
Correct.
Does executive MBA also like 1 year program, or it's more 2 years?
No, it's spread out over longer. I think when I was there, I think it was 18 months, or I can't remember, but it's all on the website. Go check it out. All right, who's next?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Venkata.
Minimum. Yeah, go ahead.
I think
sorry.
I'm next in line. Is that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did I cut someone off?
No,
it's
all
totally
you.
fine,
Go ahead.
Prakriti. We were just gonna ask you to.
I'm
unmute
so
your
sorry
mic.
if I cut someone off. I really am. So, hi guys. I hope you're doing well. I'm Prakriti, and I've got about 2 years of work experience. And yes, let me start my video too. So, hey, please don't mind. I just came back from work. I just slipped into my PJs. So, hi guys. I'm Prakriti. So, I just wanted to ask. I've got about 2.5 years of work experience, and do you think it's the right time for me to apply for 2025 intake? And this is my first question. And I wanted a follow up on this, which is that I have a year of about 1.5 years of work experience gap. Like immediately after my college, I took some time off to figure out freelancing and a lot of things. So, will this impact my application?
I have 2 words for you. You ready? Optional
Yes.
essay.
Okay.
So actually INSEAD has 2 optional essays. One of them is in the job essay section, and it says something about, well, that's actually if you're not going to be working for like 3 months before the program starts. But then in the second category, the motivation essays, there's like every school has is there something we should know essay, and that's where you talk about it. My family needed help. My father passed away, or or I did some traveling, or yes, it will need to be addressed. It's the elephant in the room, and anyone's going to want to know. And the optional essay is the place to talk about anything that jumps out at the admissions team. Like my GPA was low, have had that. I've had work, gap year, whatever. So you'll be fine, but it needs to be talked about in the optional essay. So you said, how much experience? How old are you? Probably 24, 25?
Yes, I'm 25 right now. So immediately after my graduation, I had like about 1.5 years of gap, and then after that, I joined work experience. And currently, I have about 2.5 to 3 years of work experience. And I think by the end of 2024, I'll have like about 4 years of work experience. So do you think it's the right time for me to apply for 2025 intake?
One real quick thing. As far as work experience is concerned, INSEAD likes to see that you've been with one company for at least 2 years. Job hopping is not good. So I would suggest you stick with your current employer. If you're thinking about changing, don't do it until you send in your application.
All right,
That's an inside scoop for you there. This is why they pay me the big bucks.
Hmm.
All right. But does the number of years of work experience matter?
I mean, not in and of itself. It's what you've done with those couple of years.
All right, got it. And just last question before to sign off. So I have international internship experience. So I did my internship in Germany in the field of robotics. But I'm currently working in marketing because that's where I found my love of work. So is this something that would affect the application, or will it help me boost my application?
It sounds great.
Mhm.
It sounds awesome.
All right, thank you guys. So this is my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Over to the next person, I guess.
I can see some hands being raised, and since Pradeep also has his video on, we can give this first one to him.
Hey,
So
hi,
yeah,
thanks a lot. So I wanted to ask about the GMAT waivers. Like, what should we represent on our SOP or resume to get the waiver?
this would be Andy's favorite question. Andy.
Ah,
Well, okay. So first of all, I don't believe INSEAD offers a GMAT waiver. I haven't heard.
yeah.
But in general, GMAT waivers, they want to see academic excellence. They want to see that you have a 4.0 GPA or that you have a great record of basically they're like, why are we giving this to you? Like, so yeah, I have a client now who's applied for a bunch of waivers and he's getting them all, but he's also got an amazing record of promotion and a 4.0 GPA in all his academic work. So that's the short story. But unless they've changed their policy, I don't believe INSEAD is offering GMAT waivers now. I may be wrong, but I think that's right.
No, they aren't. Not that.
Yeah. Okay, what's next?
Akshay, can I ask a question? This is
Go.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
This was in continuation to your previous comments, Andy, regarding people who are in their mid-30s, say 34, 35, 36.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there are a couple of others online who would be interested in this question. So I just got off a webinar with Virginie. There was an INSEAD webinar a couple of hours
I
earlier.
heard about it.
Yeah, I asked her a similar question. So they mentioned that they look at the work experience and see if your work experience qualifies for an MBA. What does that statement mean exactly, right? In general, she mentioned that earlier they were comfortable taking in people till 35, 36. They were very open about it. And last year there was somebody who graduated at the age of 38. So no straight answers. It's all a gray area. But what is the dirty reality? So yeah.
Oh boy. So
I'll be applying. So just to add, I'll be applying at 34. I'll start at 35. I'll graduate at 36. I have 12 years of experience. So yeah.
So I've heard her say that before, and I don't ever remember meeting anyone as old as 37. But if you think about the school is a business, right? And they have different products for different demographics. So if you're right out of school, a fresh graduate, it's going to be master's in management, master's in finance. Then when you get to be 24, 25, then you enter even 23, 24, 25, then you enter MBA world. And then that might be 8 years or 9 years, and then it's EMBA. And the reason for that is that for most people, when you're in your mid 30s, you might have children, you might have a great job that you don't want to leave, and you can't just quit for a year. So you can work and study simultaneously with the EMBA. I mean, when I was at INSEAD, my boss, Stephanie, the director of the MBA program, she got her EMBA simultaneous to managing the MBA program. The way to think about it is this, okay? If you go through your application and you get dinged from the MBA process, if you don't make it in, they don't tell you why. It might be for your GMAT, it might be for your, something they don't like on your resume, but they might think, well, maybe this person should be, in the EMBA. And so I personally would say probably 34-ish, maybe 35, go ahead and apply for the MBA. Well, I'm thinking when you get 35 plus, go for the EMBA. I think that your chances of acceptance are better for that. Now, none of this is scientific. I'm just brainstorming on my own experience, but that's what I would say.
What is the best way to optimize our chances as a 35 or 34-year-old?
I guess what I would say to you is just apply for the MBA, and if you don't get in, maybe they'll I've had admissions team people say to clients, maybe try applying for the EMBA. So I would say just go for it. And then if you don't get in, regroup and apply for the EMBA.
Sure. Thank you. Sanjana, do
Okay.
you see 35 years old in class? This is my last question. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Go.
No, I see a lot of 31, 32 I've seen up till. I have not seen anyone past 32. And I think one other thing you could do, it's worked for me actually with some of the schools I applied to. A lot of schools have this option where you can go on their website, upload your CV, and then basic information like your GMAT score, years of experience. And then they actually give you personalized recommendations, like somebody from the AdCom will reply to you. I know I did that for a couple of schools, in fact. Some schools will reply to you and, give you suggestions. That might actually work well in your favor if you do that for some of the schools and see what their feedback is. They will actually tell you straight up, like, I think you should apply for the MBA. I think you should apply for the EMBA. They'll be able to give you advice on that.
Yeah, and in every schools are different. We're just talking about INSEAD here, but schools are different. Let's move on to the next topic because we're burning up time here.
Yeah. So Parita, can you turn on your audio and ask your question?
Yes. Hello. Good evening. It's night in India, so I'm sorry if that doesn't match. I just have a very simple question. So before I reveal my problematic areas in my application, my advantageous areas are I have 7+ years of work experience. And as Sir mentioned, I have no switching problem because out of those 7+ years, I've been with a single company for 5. Immediately after my engineering degree got over. In fact, I started working immediately.
Okay, good. But cut to the chase. Tell us the problem and we'll
All right. So now that you know the strength area and a good career progression, my problem is that after 4 attempts in GMAT, my score is at a 660, even though my mock scores were 770 each time. So there's clearly a problem there. And now I don't have time to give it again, given my round 2 deadlines. So I just wanted to know that combined with a 2.8 GPA, do I stand a chance at all, at least in the top 40, if not the top 20?
Well, Sanjana, you go first and tell her about your GMAT experience, and then I'll say what I want to say.
I took the GMAT a bunch of times while I was applying. It was the biggest, I would say, roadblock for me as part of
move your hands. You're blocking your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was like a huge roadblock for me. But I think really, if you're applying to INSEAD, it is really not about the GMAT score only.
What was your score?
680. And what's really interesting is there's an MBA and Beyond candidate I just met at INSEAD 2 days ago who said, hey, Sanjana, I've heard all about your GMAT journey and experience. My score was a lot lower than yours. Can you guess what it was? And I had no idea. And it was a 630. And she's at INSEAD right now. And she also applied through MBA and Beyond.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but my problem is there's 2 problematic areas. It's the 2.8 GPA and a 660 V47, a Q47 V34. Please continue.
I think, first of all, optional essay, and you kind of said that in one of the earlier ones, your experience and your other things do count for value. If you've done anything, I don't know exactly what you did for work. I know for me, I tried to show a lot of the tech work that I did, the value I brought about in that. So I was trying to kind of compensate in other ways. And I'm sure Andy might have some feedback as well for what he's doing with other clients, but that's not a roadblock if you can make up for it in other ways, I would say.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like your, it's a thing. It definitely is an issue, but it also is not a deal breaker. I would say apply if your story is compelling, if your profile, if you're passionate about your goals and you can articulate your vision. It's not, it's not great. It's definitely an issue, but it's also in and of itself, it's not going to keep you out. If you apply and you don't get in, they'll probably, they might not, but I would say regroup, take it again, and then you can reapply. But I would not let that with those 2 metrics prevent you from applying. That's my message. A secret I want to tell you, by the way, to make you feel better, you're a woman, then that's going to help you. INSEAD wants women. All MBA programs want to admit more women. So you got this. You can do it.
Thank you for being so positive. Thank you so much.
That's my job. That's my job. You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't last long in this business if I was like, no, you're not going to get in.
I understand. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Right. So we can take the next question from Aryan. If you can, please unmute yourself and then ask the question. Yeah. Aryan, are you there?
Yeah, I posted some questions on chat, so a couple of them. I don't know if you can process those, but anyway.
Pick your most important one, because we got to spread the love around. So pick one.
Yeah, for executive MBA, does it help in career shift, and do you see a lot of difference in the salaries, and what's the difference that it makes from the curriculum and teaching style from the MBA?
Virtually the same curriculum and teaching style. The difference is that the professors will give you projects and assignments in the MBA, and you work on them, case-based, and you work on it with your colleagues. But with the EMBA, what they often do is assign assignments and projects and papers, but you use your workplace as the lab. You go back and it's like, well, improve communication or work on XYZ finance, and then you actually go back and do that with your employer if possible. So I heard a lot of, I would just be having coffee with EMBA students and they would say that's how that works. In terms of salaries, I do not know, but I'm sure the admissions team would have plenty of data on that. What was your other question about that?
Something like so I'll add in some questions. So something like a full-time EMBA also would work out probably, if not at INSEAD. Would you have seen this based on your experience in Europe or in France?
You lost me. Full-time. Say that again.
Yeah, full-time program as a student, as an executive MBA, but a full-time program. On
you
campus.
mean
a possibility to be on campus and do an executive MBA?
Oh, no, they don't do that. I mean, you do visit the campus. It's when I say EMBA, the way INSEAD structures it is you spend 2 weeks on the Fontainebleau campus, and you go back to your workplace. Then like 3 months later, you spend 2 weeks in the Singapore campus, and then you go back to your workplace. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. But yes, you do meet people in person, and it's not online virtual classes. You definitely go to the classroom, and then you're communicating with your study group when you're not on campus, and then you go back to campus, and so you have a physical presence on campus.
Okay, could you just add in how to explain a work gap? Like you were telling somebody, but is there a specific method to convince the committee that after saturation or after working for long years, you have taken a gap and just contemplating about yourself? Is there a way to explain that?
No, I mean, there's no set formula because it depends on the person. It depends on the reason. Did you need to stay home because of family reasons? Did you get sick? I mean, everyone has a different reason. And so as long as you can explain it, you're fine. That's definitely, no, not if there's a good reason. Absolutely not. It's case by case. And that's something a consultant can help you with, is how to spin that and make it seem like it's no big deal. Same with the GPA and GMAT. A consultant can help you explain that and make it a non-issue. Who's next?
Yeah. So next, if we can have Ahmed. I'm sorry, I believe.
No, I think the other lady was saying something about the executive MBA. I don't know if I cut her off or.
You know what? We've got to move on. We've got to move on.
Yeah, Aryan, what we can do is, after this session, we'll reach out to all of you, over email, and we can schedule a profile evaluation call through the link that we sent you, because we want to answer all the questions that we're trying to. Yeah. So next we can take Ahmed, if you can unmute yourself and then ask a question. And then Hardik, I see you after Ahmed, you can go ahead.
Hand raiser. Uh-oh. Are you there? Not you, Hardik. Who did you call on, Sakshi?
Ahmed. If not, then maybe Hardik, you can start with your question.
Go for it.
Thanks. Hi everyone. So question is simple. How are candidates who are taking up second MBA in INSEAD are perceived by the committee?
Oh yeah, I saw your question. You're not going to like my answer, but they don't like it. And you know, I actually spoke to Virginie Fujia about this, and they don't like it. Only because it's like, well, what was wrong with your first MBA, and why do you blah blah blah? I hate. You seem so nice, and I don't like giving this answer, but they don't like it. I've often said that schools in India, they're handing out in MBAs that I feel like they should say to you, by the way, if you ever plan on applying for an MBA in the United States or in Europe or outside of India, they're not going to like it. So there's other ways to, you could get a master's in something else or blah, 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 but 2 MBAs is not, I mean, maybe somebody wants to disagree with me, but it's not viewed upon well, but I'm sorry about that.
Also, to add on to Andy, what you have said, we do have, people who have been accepted with a second MBA, Hardik. So it's not just, like a no. It's also how you present yourself and your reason for doing a second MBA. Maybe you can mention that your first MBA didn't really help you with what you were looking for, or it didn't give you that exposure with your first MBA, and it was way far back that you can mention. And yeah, I think we've never seen an issue with that, but yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Who's next?
And then we can take Vatsal, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for this session. I wanted to have a follow-up question with what the sir said about international experience. So, one, I wanted to understand how is pro bono work that one can, do for international or at their own countries levels, non-profit organization perceived by the ADCOM. And second, when we talk about international work, as sir said, does remote working or the fact that you worked online, since you don't have to travel over there or you could not, how does that impact, or does it make a difference of the world in the narrative?
Both answers are yes and yes. Fabulous. Pro bono, awesome. I mean, I'm assuming that is like either social impact or volunteering or yes, that's great. And remote work, yes, it counts as international experience. International clients, you do not have to be physically present in the country you're talking about. Yes, it counts. That's the short answer, especially with what we've been through with the pandemic. When we're stuck at home, you're golden. You're in that. It counts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We can take the next question from Adya. So if Adya, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi,
So
everyone.
Sanjana, if you can answer that question, I think people are looking to answer from you.
Hey, hi everyone. This is Adya here. Thank you so much for this insightful session. And my question was towards Sanjana, that what was the timeline from where did you start and how much time did it take for you to appear the GMAT and then for the applications and the interviews? So could you just give us a gist about it?
An average application round for INSEAD is, I would say, so start to end. From start meaning the submission of your application till the day you get the final result is probably 3 months, 2.5, 3 months. But I think for me to prepare, the most amount of time it took me for my GMAT was because I actually took the GMAT twice while I was already working on my application. So it differs on obviously each case, but I think the application itself would have taken me anywhere from, I think, maybe 2 months if I were to, exclude the time that I spent on the GMAT. But because I decided to take the GMAT again, I pushed my round to the next round, and that's why it maybe took me longer. But if I would have just looked at the work that I put into the application, be it my recommendations, my essays, everything would have been 2 months. Easy.
Okay, and there was one more question. I have a 2 years work experience after my bachelor's, and I am planning for my MBA ahead. So, how much work experience do you think would be apt for my applications to be taken into consideration, right?
I think Andy mentioned this in one of the questions, that it's not really about the experience as much as what is the work that you've done. Obviously, the MBA experience is not just looking at a number, but what they're trying to see is how you're adding value in your class. And because you would have, say, classmates with more years of experience. So it's nothing else but how you're contributing to their learning and they're contributing to yours. At 2 years, it's more about the exposure that you've had. And if it's not enough and it's been kind of limited to, say, certain, say, areas only, then it might be a deterrent. But if not, probably do a profile evaluation and see what the MBA and Beyond team has to say based on your
And
profile specific.
has that 2 years been with one company?
Yes, it's been with one consulting firm, and I have
Awesome.
been working with a company abroad. You might have heard Philips Domestic Appliances. So I have had the
Sure.
international experience. So it's
And
been
have
good
you
there.
been promoted at all?
So I am looking forward for the promotion this cycle. So the results are yet to be out, and I'm very positive about it because my manager is also positive about it. So let's
Perfect.
hope for best. Fingers crossed.
Great. And then you've got the answer to the INSEAD question. What would you do if you don't go to INSEAD? The answer is I would stay in my role, expand my responsibilities with my promotion, and you've got one of your essays already written, so you're good.
All right, then thank you. And just one more thing. So 2 year, is that possible that after 2 or 3 years of work, they really take people in? Because I have heard that only after 4 years of experience, it is something that is.
What's your age? How old are you?
I am 23 right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're a bit on the young side, but I don't think that's going to keep you out. You're like wine. You're like fine wine who's going to ripen with age. But I think you should go for it. I think you'll be fine.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think we can take one last question. And guys, we've tried our best to answer all the questions. But
We'll
yeah,
do another one of
we
these.
can take one from Dhruv. So yeah, Dhruv, if you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, no, thank you. I actually had the same question as Adya, but Sanjana, again to you. The 2 months that you said took you for the whole application process, can you just elaborate a bit more on where did you start? What came next? Like you submitted the first application, then was it the essays? And then about the LORs maybe, and
Got it.
like each increment by increment, how long did it take you for each step?
So how it works is in MBA and Beyond has, I don't know if you've taken a profile evaluation. I would recommend everybody probably book an evaluation. They will walk you through the journey that you have at MBA and Beyond. But you start with what's known as content gathering, where you basically answer a couple of questions. So they will have structured set of questions for you. And then from that, so in my case, Andy came up with a branding document, which was basically on all the questions that I answered. He put together this document of information of how I should position myself in my applications moving forward. We finalized the schools that I wanted to apply to because he basically understood my profile by, looking at all the information I'd given to him. And then once we finalize my schools, those schools get unlocked in the portal that we have at MBA and Beyond. And then you start working on the application questions for each of the schools. So for example, INSEAD had certain questions. And then Andy and I came up with the plan, which question do we start with? I think he already has like a structure plan for you. For example, he said, like the first 4 questions are more professional ones. The last 2 or 3 are more motivational ones. So, Andy obviously told me what's the way to go about it. We came up with a plan, which one to begin with. The word limits are different for those questions. The effort it would take is different based on what you've already done on content evaluation. So then that'll all happen with your counselor. You will come up with a plan of action. And then once your essays are done, I think you go through at least a couple. I went through a couple of versions of drafts. Once Andy was comfortable with the drafts I'd presented, how it works is somebody else at MBA and Beyond that is not my counselor, so that's not Andy, also reviews the application that I have. So in my case, Shantanu reviewed my application. And then once everything was final, we submit it. Once you submit the application at INSEAD, you get 48 hours to do a video interview. So in 48 hours, you will be presented with 4 questions that appear on the screen and you get a minute to prepare. I think you get 40 seconds to prepare and you have to randomly, a random question will appear on the screen and you have to speak for a minute on that topic that you were given. And that has to happen within the 48 hours of you submitting your application. that counts as your first entire stage of application submission. Then you hear back from the AdCom in a month's time, I would say, that you've been selected for interview. Once that happens, you're connected with 2 people that are alumni from INSEAD, and then you would basically coordinate with each of them and schedule your interviews. So I had one in person and one virtually. And then you are also in parallel working on the scholarship submission. So you're applying for scholarship and you're doing a scholarship application separately, which again, I worked with Andy on. And then when you have all your financial information, scholarship submitted, you finally hear back from INSEAD a month later. I remember you get a phone call saying you've been accepted. And only a couple of days after that, you hear back on your scholarship, status, like how much scholarship you've gotten. So that's the entire journey. And that's for INSEAD. It differs school to school, but yeah.
Okay, and what about the LORs? And who exactly should one approach to get the LORs?
You guys, I don't know, Sakshi, do we have time for
I
such
believe
detail?
that yeah, so what we can do is, Ru, you can book a profile evaluation call. The team would reach out to you, and the profile evaluator themselves would be the best person to answer, these questions. They themselves have also, been through the process, and they can also guide you well. So yeah.
I see one quick question, Sandra. You're a good sport. I see you're asking about a master's in management. No, that doesn't decrease your chances. You're fine with that. So okay, Sakshi, you have to sign us off.
Yeah.
The question is kind of I don't see anybody else answering this for me. So is that okay if I go ahead?
Yeah. Andy, if you can take this one last one.
Sure, I'm good.
Thank you, Andy. My question is about the interview process. Is it more technical? And if it is, no, not at all. All right.
It's not. There's no. They're not going to say like, okay, it's not. I mean, I'm not in a hurry. I'm going to go have breakfast after this. I'm going to answer this question. There's no interviews. They're not trying to trick you. They're not trying to, ask you anything complicated. They want to. I mean, essentially, what the interview is there for is to. These alumni are going to invite you into their little club. They're going to recommend to the school that they let you in. So they want to know that you're not a jerk. They want to know that you're going to add to the community. They want to press you. They want to push you. They're going to ask you questions, but they're not there to be hostile. They're not there to find a reason to keep you out. And I am going to blow my own horn here. I think, interview prep is one of my strengths, like giving people confidence and making people feel comfortable going into it. So you'll be fine. Believe me, when you get there, you'll be fine.
And I have a couple of businesses right now. What would those look like? So when they do address business aspects of it during the interview, is it more so about the work?
So that question is a little more personal. So go ahead and set up a profile evaluation and we'll set you up. That's a little too personal, that question.
Very well. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. This would be the end of us taking the questions. But what we can do is someone from the team would reach out to you after this session, and there would be a link to book a profile evaluation call, and the profile evaluator would answer all your questions. And Nikita, yes, we do have these sessions every alternate Thursdays. So you will receive the link and you can join in. Hopefully we can answer all your questions for the next session and in the call as well. So thank you so much, guys, for joining in. Thank you so much, Andy, Sanjana, and all those who have joined in, given us their 1 hour.
And I want to say also, everyone on this call that's thinking about applying, you all have your reasons, like, oh my God, I'm not going to get in because of this. You can do it. Like, that's what we're here for. Is none of you on this call, everyone can get in. Like, you just need assistance, and that's what we're here for. So don't think negatively. You guys can do this. I promise. That's my message now that I'm awake at 8:36 in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Have a good day, Andy. And to whoever joining us.
Thanks, Andy. See you
Sanjana,
around.
bye-bye. I love you.
Bye.